Hey everyone, Andrew Boylan here. So I wanted to talk about one of my favorite shows that I've been watching for the past few years, The Chosen. And if you've seen my show, AB in the Films, you already know that I have reviewed this show for the finale. And the more I think about it, the more I start to realize I really didn't review that show. I really just talked about myself. I wasn't talking about what I thought of it as a series and the acting and all that, and I really feel like there is a lot to talk about with the show because I really do enjoy it, and I feel that I kind of talked about it in the finale for AB in the Films, but I never really went into an in-depth discussion about it with myself because I'm talking to this camera. But I really like it, and with season 3 now being airing every week right now, because that's the time this is being recorded, I thought it'd be nice to talk about the series in vlogs. So I'll do like an episode. I know James Rolfe has done this on his channel. Doug Walker did this too. He picked a TV show. I think he did it with the Avatar series, and he did an episode each night. Well, I'm probably not gonna do an episode a night. Maybe an episode a week, which would make this last for a little while because I think there's like 22 episodes with this show as of right now. So, or by the time this is done, by the time season 3 is done, there'll be at least 22 episodes, I think. And each episode, there's a lot to talk about. So, I decided to talk about The Chosen, and I have the first season on DVD right here, as well as the second season. I love how they look identical. The only difference is it says season 1 and season 2 at the top. That's the only, I don't know if you guys can see that, but that's the only difference, because these two, they look identical. And if you do like, my phone's going off. If you guys do like this show, I recommend, and if you want to get it on DVD, although you can always watch it on your app, on the phone app for free, but I got these DVD sets because this is loaded with special features, and if you guys know me, I'm a big fan of DVDs. I love the special features, the menus and all that, and these come with a lot of special features, including stuff that you can't find on the app. So that was one of the main reasons why I got these. I could have gotten the standard edition DVD, but I wanted to get these instead because these have everything. These are 6-disc sets and great artwork in there. I think it's really cool. Again, I love making DVDs myself with movies and shows that I've done, so this is really cool to have. And the good news is when the show is over, because Dallas Jenkins, the creator, has said when he's done making the show, he wants to do 7 seasons. So when the show's over, I'll have 5 more of these, pretty much. But enough about that. So let's talk about The Chosen. So season 3 is in the middle of airing right now, and episode 4 aired last night. And I saw that, and I was just, again, every time I watch an episode of this show, even if I've seen it before, I'm still always blown away. It's like I'm watching it for the first time. And I can say that about very few shows. You know, so this show, like, there's shows I've seen over and over and over again, but there are other shows that I've seen over and over, and then it feels like you're watching it for the first time, even though you could quote it. So this show, I probably should go into a little bit of a discussion. So I'm going to do vlogs for The Chosen for every episode, starting with the first season. And I feel like before I talk about the first episode, I think I should give a little bit of a backstory about where I was when I first started watching this show. And I feel I've talked about this before on my channel, but I'll go into a brief description about it here. So, I have always believed in Jesus Christ. I've always believed, and here's another thing I want to make clear. Even if you're not Catholic, or whether you believe in God, or even if you don't, this is still a phenomenal show, regardless. I'm telling you right now, like, I'm not saying, like, if you don't believe in God, this show's not for you. No. This show is for everybody. There is something to enjoy in this show, regardless, okay? So now, my history. So I was always raised Roman Catholic. My parents are Catholic. I went to Catholic school, 3rd grade, all the way through high school. Never opened up a Bible one time in those 10 years. I always believed Jesus was the Messiah, even though I didn't understand what that meant. I did believe in God. I knew God was real. Every time one of my family members would pass away, I knew that they were in heaven with Jesus. I just didn't, and sometimes, and I never really felt their presence or anything. I just knew that, but I didn't comprehend it or understand it. And so that's pretty much where I was. And because I didn't understand it, I never really got into my faith. I never prayed. I stopped going to church when I was in high school, and I never went to church after that. And I graduated high school in 2011, so it's been a long time. So I stopped going to confession. I stopped going. I wouldn't go to Easter Mass. I wouldn't go to that. The only time I think I ever went to church was probably Christmas Eve, because I just love going to church on Christmas. It's just a great time. And I stopped celebrating it. So you get the idea. I wasn't really... I believed, but I wasn't practicing because I didn't understand. And I just didn't understand, or I didn't care. So January of 2020 comes, and I had this amazing experience. And if you want to hear about that, there's a video on my channel called I Opened Up. You can click that. The link's in the description below. So that blew me away. I opened up, I had this whole new look on everything, and a part of me did die, but I was still living in certain things that I didn't want to give up, but I knew I was going to have to, and I didn't know how I was going to do that. So I opened up and I was having a good time. And then, I'll give you guys a bit of an update. This part I haven't talked about. So during that whole year of 2020, which I'm sure everybody remembers quite well, I joined a group, a prayer group, which I'm still involved with, and one of the women in our group, who I consider one of my best friends ever, who has helped me very much in my walk with God, she kept telling me throughout that summer of 2020, she kept saying, "Hey, have you heard of this show called The Chosen? Have you ever seen it?" And I would always tell her, "No, I haven't seen it," and kept telling her that I would, even though I wasn't interested, because I have seen movies about Jesus. You know, I've seen Jesus of Nazareth. I've seen The Passion of the Christ. I have seen the 1970, I think that was the year it came out. It's just called Jesus, and it's on YouTube. Like, I've seen that. I don't need to see another thing about... because it's boring. It's boring. Like, it's not interesting. It's never interesting. It's the same thing over and over again, and I get it. But, so I didn't bother to check it out. So then, November of 2020 happens, and I had a big traumatic thing happen to me at that time, and I didn't know where to turn. And it felt like I had just lost everything. And this was after I opened up. This is 11 months after I opened up. So I really didn't know where to turn. And I was feeling quite upset about it. And so I would fall asleep during that time. This is November 2020. I would fall asleep with my phone, and I would play the Jesus movie, because it was on YouTube, and I would just play that over and over again, and I would fall asleep to it. And then I would play it the next night and fall asleep to it. And after about 2 weeks of doing that, it gets kind of boring, because you're doing the same thing over and over again. So I wanted to move on to something else that was Jesus related. And she was telling me, her name is Jess, by the way. She was telling me, you should watch The Chosen. So I said, okay, I want something new. I'm lost again. Let me see it. Now, I didn't know how to see it, but she told me she had the DVD. She had not this DVD, she had the standard edition DVD, but she gave it to me, and I said, all right, let me watch it and just sample this and see what it is. Because I wasn't expecting much, because I'd seen this stuff before. Boy, I had no idea what I was getting into. And I think a lot of people feel that way when they're like, I don't want to see another Jesus show. No, this one you want to see. So I watched the first episode, and I was kind of bored by it. I was bored. Saw the second episode, okay, I kind of like it. Once the third episode came, I was, okay, I'm on board. I love this. This is one of the best shows I've ever seen. This is one of the best shows. And I felt that in the first two episodes as well. But the first two episodes are like an introduction, you know what I mean? But once you get to the third episode, from that point onward, it just goes off, and I love it. So I really got into the show at that point. And I'm going to tell you, before I get into the episode, I really do believe, and I wonder if Dallas Jenkins feels this way too, that he's the creator of the show. He does a lot of live streams on YouTube every time a new episode comes out. He's the creator, director, producer, one of the writers of the show. He's like the main guy of this show. And I really do believe, because I did a little investigating with this show. I really think that the reason why this show is such a phenomenon now is because during the pandemic, this show was offered for free on YouTube during the pandemic. And this thing exploded online. Because people saw this, we were all stuck at home, and everyone was thinking, what is this show? I've never seen anything like this before. I've seen movies and shows about Jesus before, but nothing like this. And I felt the same way. And I really do believe that the pandemic is the reason why this show got really, really popular. Because here's the thing. The first 4 episodes of season 1 were made before the pandemic. I think the whole first season was made before the pandemic happened. But nobody knew what this show was then. But then when everybody was at home, so you get the point. And they were able to do a second season because people wanted to donate money, and that's how they're able to do the show. People donate money on the app, and they can watch it for free. Don't ask me how that works. I don't know how that works, but the fact that we can all see this show for free and we can donate to it, and that's how this show is able to get made because it's made outside of the Hollywood system, unbelievable. It's fantastic. Like that act alone, is coming from God. God wants this out for people to see it. It's fantastic. Now, the first episode. Now, I should point this out. It seems to me that in every season, they do about 8 episodes a season. Sometimes 9. Because they have a bonus episode in the first season and in the second season. They did a Christmas episode in season 2. I don't think they're going to do it in season 3, but usually they do 8 episodes a season. And Dallas Jenkins has said over and over he wants to do 7 seasons of this show. And he's already said, I'm not giving this away here. He said this many times. He wants... Now, we're in season 3 right now. Season 3 is airing right now, every Sunday night on the app. So, he wants to do 7 seasons. He has said that he wants the 6th season to be focused on the crucifixion, and the 7th season to be focused on the resurrection. Now, that's season 6 and 7. We're here. We're in season 3 right now. So we're not that far away from the big reveal. And I cannot wait to see how they tackle that, because all of the Bible stories that they tackle in this show are done in a way that not only you can relate to it, but it makes you look at it in a whole new way, to a point where it makes you want to read the Bible. Okay, that's how powerful this show is. So I can't wait to see what they do with season 6 and 7. I am so thrilled. But in order for them to get there, they have to do... I think they're raising money for season 4 right now, because season 3 is done. They're just airing it now. So I'm really, really excited to see how they're going to tackle that. And also what they're going to do in seasons 4, 5, and also the rest of season 3, because where we are in season 3, oh man, it's getting good. That's one of the best things I love about this show, And this goes into what the first episode is about, a portion of it. I was raised Roman Catholic, and I've heard of these people in the New Testament. I've heard of these people, and even people in the Old Testament too. But the great thing about it is, when they come into the show, you don't know who this person is until they introduce themselves. And the minute they introduce themselves, you start thinking, oh, so that's who that is. That's this that's that person, because we know what's going to happen later. Because we know the story. And if you don't know the story, great. Keep watching. You'll be surprised. So that's what's another good thing about this show. And the other great thing about this show is, when I started watching it, I didn't realize that... Because again, this is the reason why I was delaying watching it for so long. Because my friend Jess, she was telling me to watch this show in the summer. I didn't start watching this until the fall. Okay? And you say, why wouldn't you watch it right away? Because I wasn't ready yet. I'm not saying this is a substitute for scripture. It's not. It's a TV show, But it does help me in a way that I think you'll find interesting. So, this is the first show I have seen with a couple of things. both happening for me and for this type of media itself. For me, this is the first time I have seen a media show about Jesus, and for the first time understand what Jesus is talking about here. Because I have seen other movies and shows about Christ, and I never got it. I just looked at it and said, well, that's what it is. Not understanding the meaning and what it's all about. Here, I understand it, because I started watching this after I had the born-again experience. So now I'm watching this, and it's new, and I get it. So that was one of the big things that happened to me of why I love this show so much. The other thing is, what I love about this show is that this is the first time where I can look at all 12 disciples and they're all individuals. Because before, they all looked the same. They never had any character development. They never had any kind of characteristic or backstory or anything. It was just, here they are. Here are the 12 disciples. The only disciple everybody remembers from any movie or show about Jesus before The Chosen is Judas. Why? Because we remember what he did. A characteristic. The other 11, irrelevant. Because we don't know them. We just know their names. That's it. Maybe their occupation of what they were before they met Jesus, but we've never seen any kind of movie or show about how they met Jesus. That would be interesting to see. I'm interested in seeing how Simon met Jesus. We know how, it's in the Bible, but how did Andrew meet him? How did Philip meet him? How did Nathaniel and all these other, how did they meet Jesus? What was that like? What were they doing? What would make them change and come over to him? Seriously. And that's what this show tackles. And it's done in a very... They try to put as much historical context into the show as they can. I'm not saying that this is exactly what happened, but it's done in a way where you can see that happening, you know, almost in a relatable way. And I think that's why a lot of people love this show, because they can relate to this. They can. I can. So the first episode, I'll probably get into the first episode now. So the first episode is I Have Called You by Name. And this is technically not the first episode. It's actually, well, it's the first episode in the series. I know The Shepherd is technically the pilot, and I'll talk about that at the end of season 1, but let me talk about the series. So episode 1, I Have Called You by Name. So, and also, there's going to be a lot of spoilers in here. So if you haven't seen The Chosen, first of all, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm thinking about doing this show, I'm thinking about doing a vlog every Monday. I don't know why, I'm just thinking about doing it every Monday. And if you guys want to watch this show with me, or if you have seen this show, check it out, and then come here and watch this with me. We'll talk about it in the comments, you know, so that way you guys can watch along with me if you haven't seen it. So every Monday I'm going to be doing a new vlog. So if you guys want to watch The Chosen, watch an episode every week, and we'll talk about it here on Monday. So here we go. First episode. So it starts off with, first of all, I should say this. Here's one more thing I really love about this show, and then I'll get into the episode. What I also love about this show is the fact that in the opening credit sequence, usually this show is about an hour long. Sometimes it's a half hour, but most of the time it's about an hour. What's great about this show is when it starts, sometimes the pre-title sequence will be something from the Old Testament, and it ties into the show, the episode, which is the New Testament, okay? So I love that the show does that. I can't wait to see what other things they do. We have seen Moses in the Old Testament in certain episodes at the beginning. We have seen Jacob. We've seen a lot of characters from the Old Testament, and it ties into the show. And I remember thinking that is so genius. I love that, from a storytelling narrative, to directing, to editing this. I mean, I'm blown away, especially me being a film nut. This is great storytelling. I love it. And it's funny because the Bible does that too. Read Isaiah, right? So there you go. So I'm reading. So I'm watching the first episode. It starts off with this little girl talking to her dad, and her dad's very sick. And I don't know who anybody... And that's one of the main problems I had. Well, it's one of the few problems that I had with the first two episodes. Because, again, it's all about introduction. Because, in the end, we're still telling a story here. It's a TV show. We got to introduce these characters somehow. And so, they don't really reveal who they are until the moment is right. So, the first episode I'm watching this, I don't know who any of these people are. They're just walking around doing their own thing until they have a conversation with somebody and their name gets mentioned. And then I'm thinking, oh, okay, that's who that is. Okay, I understand that now. All right. Well, this little girl, I think she's about maybe 7. She's sitting there with her dad, and she's afraid. And this is something a lot of people, I think, can relate to, because this is one of the best ways to open up this show. Especially a show about Jesus. The show opens up. This little girl is sitting with her dad, and she's afraid. And he looks at her, and he says, "What do we do when we are scared?" And she's like, we say his words, like Adonai's words. That's what we say. Now, for those who don't know, Adonai is another term for God. They have a lot of terms for God. The Adonai, Yahweh, Yeshua, a lot of terms for God. And so he says, we say the words, okay, and the words are, I think they are, thus says the Lord who created you, O Jacob, and he who formed you, O Israel. I say, fear not, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by name, you are mine. And the dad gives these words to his daughter. And it cuts to her years later as an adult. And she is just not living by those words at all. She is living in sin. She is not living a godly life. She's not even living a Jewish life, actually, and she is Jewish. She's not doing any of the traditions. She hasn't done them for years. And she's actually possessed, believe it or not. So then we cut to Nicodemus, who... I just want to say, Eric Avari, the guy who plays Nicodemus, this is one of the greatest casting choices I've ever seen. And here's the thing, though. When I saw this show, he was the only actor I recognized. Everybody else is a new actor. Like, I never heard of these actors before. Eric Avari was the only one, because I had seen him in other things. And he's phenomenal. And everybody else in the show is phenomenal, too. They're all great. Everybody's great in this show. So... So Nicodemus comes in. He gets stopped by Quintus, who, he's part of the Roman Empire. I think he's the praetor, I believe. That's the term. And he's talking to Nicodemus and, saying, we have a problem in the Red Quarter. We want you to go in and heal this woman because this woman's causing a problem. And it's the woman we just saw, the woman who's possessed. And Nicodemus goes in. He tries to heal her, and it doesn't work. And she's possessed. Like, she even says, "You have no power here, teacher. You have none." And Nicodemus is like, "Okay, we're out of here. We're leaving." And he's like, she can't be healed. I can't heal her. I've done everything I can. I've honored God. I've worshipped God all my life. He's part of the Sanhedrin. He was a holy man. He has a lot of students that he's teaching about God. But again, Jesus isn't around yet. They don't know him yet. Jesus is alive, but we haven't met him yet. And he goes, "Well, I think I must have done something wrong, but she can't be healed. Only God can heal this woman. I can't do anything. I've done all I can." And we also meet these two brothers. We meet Simon and his brother Andrew. So when they're talking to them, I'm like, that's Simon and Andrew. Okay, I know I've heard of these guys. Okay, they're the fishermen. They are the one with the boat with all the fish. I know that story. Okay, and turns out Simon is married. He has a wife. He likes to gamble a lot. He likes to do everything on his own. He doesn't ask God for it. He does it all on his own. He's like, I can do everything on my own. I don't need God's help. I can handle it. I can do it. I'm a man. I can do it. And he, and this one particular day, he goes to his tax collector to pay his taxes, and there we meet Matthew, the tax collector, also one of the 12. And I didn't know this. I did not know that Matthew was a tax collector. Didn't know that. And I remember thinking when I saw him, and I want to say Paris, is it Paris or Paras? I don't know how you pronounce it, but Paris Patel, the guy who plays Matthew, I'm going to say this about a lot of the actors, but this is one of the greatest character story arcs I've ever seen for this duration of the show. From the beginning of season 1 until now, the beginning of season 3. I love Matthew's story arc. I can relate to that in so many ways. And I'm sure a lot of other people can too. So, we meet Matthew. Now, he's a tax collector. Now, he's surrounded by all these clothes, and, you know, he has gold. He has everything he could want in this life. He has so many possessions. But he doesn't... He's not the kind of person that would be tied to possessions. He has an attitude more like, okay, I am a tax collector. I am putting money first. I am valuing money, but not in a way like, oh, I want it, but more in a way like, oh, I'm very good at counting it because I'm very good at that. I have a skill. I'm good at counting money, you know? And that's another thing that they do in the show, and I really like that. I think that's a fascinating way of, like, an interesting turn of it, because I never saw it in this way. Like, the people who do The Chosen decided to, for historical context, and again, I'm not saying that this really did happen this way, but it kind of makes sense. Like I could see it being possible that Matthew is on the spectrum. I think he's autistic. I think because he's very consumed, not because of that, but he's very consumed with figuring things out. You know, like I have to see a way around this. There has to be this cannot happen because this has to happen and that has to happen and that in order for this to, you know, not putting any kind of what Jesus talks about first. Not yet, because he hasn't met him yet. But he's not so much consumed with the world, but he's got this attitude like, you know, I have a gift. God blessed me with this gift. I know he did. I have this gift, and I'm going to use it to the best of my abilities. And that's what I'm going to do. Regardless if it goes against God, I'm still going to use it because I was blessed with it. And therefore, I'm going to do this. I'm a tax collector. So, he is a tax collector. So Simon and Andrew meet with Matthew, and of course they don't like each other because tax collector taxing them, obviously they don't like him. And Simon decides to lie to Matthew about keeping up with his dues, and he lies about the fact that he had to deal with Quintus. And Matthew says, I'm going to talk to Quintus about this. If you're lying, this could mean big punishment for you. And Simon's like, no, it's okay. I got it worked out, Andrew. It's all worked out. No, it's fine. And so then they leave. And now Simon thinks, all I got to do is just capture a lot of fish, and then we're taken care of. We're fine. We're okay. I got this. I'm a fisherman. I know what I'm doing. But then it turns out that might be easier said than done. And he's getting to a point where he's in a really bad position, which we will get into down the road. So then we cut back to this woman who's possessed, and she hasn't been living a life. And then she's at a point where she's just isolated in this house all by herself. Because again, she's possessed. She's in the Red Quarter. Nobody wants to be associated with her. She has demons in her. Nobody wants her. And the whole time I'm thinking, who is this woman? We keep cutting back to this woman. Who is she? I don't know who she is. And so then she is remembering what her dad told her when she was younger. And she's remembering that about saying Adonai's words. Whenever you're scared, just say these words. You'll be okay. This is what God taught us to say when we're afraid. And it happens a lot. And we start learning about this woman's background. Like, she was abused by a Roman soldier, and, you know, I'm not saying that it actually happened in the Bible, but if you look at the content, it's possible. She had been abused in so many ways by Roman soldiers, has a hard time with that, is unhappy, very unhappy, doesn't like where she is, deep down, doesn't want to admit it, but she is. She knows she is. She just doesn't know where to go. So she saved the words that her dad wrote down for her, and then she remembers him dying. And that really hurt her, because she lost her dad when she was a little girl. And she starts saying the words. And as she's saying the words, she's trying to get better, and she looks up as she's saying the words, and she sees a Roman soldier. And just his garments that he's wearing triggers those bad memories. And she's like, there is no hope, there's no hope, none. Rips up the words, throws them out. And she leaves. She leaves the Red Quarter. She goes to this cliff, and she's about to throw, and she throws the words out. Rips up the piece of paper with the words on them, throws them out. And she looks over this cliff, and she's about to end it all. She's about to jump, end it all. And she looks up and sees this dove flying by, and just looks at it and starts walking in the other direction, away from the cliff, and just starts walking and walking and walking until finally she ends up in this tavern. And she's done so many things against God, doesn't know where to go, but she doesn't care. She just accepts it. She's like, you know what? This is my life. This is my life now. I'm comfortable in it. I don't care. I have nothing else. My life is ruined. I don't have my dad. I haven't had my dad in years. These words aren't helping me. They're not doing anything for me. I'm done. I'm just going to keep drinking. I'm just going to drink. I got nothing to do. She takes this cup, and just as she's about to start drinking it, this hand comes over it. And she looks up at him, and it's him. You know who it is. It's him. And he just looks at her, and he says, that's not for you. And in that moment, she starts feeling all the demons in her going crazy. But he stands there, and he closes his eyes, and I can feel him say, leave her. Get out. Get out. I'm choosing her. Leave her. She does not belong to you. Leave her. And they leave. But she's still scared, and she runs. And Jesus is following her. And she doesn't know, she probably doesn't even trust men after what those Roman soldiers did. She doesn't trust anybody. And he looks at her, and she's running, and he calls her, Mary, Mary of Magdala. That was the first time I heard her name. I'm like, I've heard of her. That's her. And she turns, doesn't know who this man is, but he knew her name. Nobody's called her that name, her birth name, since she was a child. Turns around and says, who are you? And he says the words, thus says the Lord who created you. Oh man, is that a powerful scene? And he puts his hand on her head, and she, just collapses in tears. And he holds her, and it's so beautiful. Oh, it's so beautiful. I was with the show the moment I saw that. I've never seen a show like this ever in my life. I've seen actors portray Jesus heal people, but I've never seen an actor portraying Jesus healing someone like that. Not like that in a show or a movie about Jesus. I've never seen that in my life. And that, that's a big moment. That's a huge moment, because that just blew me away. And this is the first time there's ever been a seasoned show about Jesus. And I've loved movies and shows about things, but I've never thought, you know what? That's never been done before. A seasoned show about Jesus Christ. There's been miniseries and movies, but never a TV series like this. So that I thought was pretty cool. And all the disciples, and again, this is just the first episode, so there's a couple things going on, a few introduction things, and I hope I didn't leave anything out, but yeah, and Nicodemus, he's trying to, again, he's part of the Sanhedrin, he's trying to understand, he's trying to, he's teaching about God, and he feels rather upset, like even though I tried, even though I worship God and I praise God and I teach about what the Torah teaches and all that, what God gave to Moses, to teach us, to teach everybody else, I still feel bad that I couldn't heal this woman. I couldn't heal this woman. She was beyond human aid. Only God can heal this woman. Couldn't heal her. And so I couldn't heal her. But only one can. And that's what happens at the end of the episode. And that's the end of the episode. He heals her. Jesus heals Mary. He hugs her. And that's the end of the episode. And that was powerful. Jesus isn't even in the episode. He's in the last 5 minutes. That's it. So it's a bit of a slow introduction, but that last 5 minutes, whoa, man, that was some powerful stuff, and I loved it. And it made me want to go to the next episode. I want to say, oh, what's the next one about? What's the next one? I want to see the next one. So that's what's really good about this show. And yeah, so that's the first episode. I Have Called You by Name. And really good. Like I said, it's a little bit slow, but they're introducing the characters. Because once you know the characters as you watch the show, you're going to love it from that point on. It just gets better and better. Because I've always said, when I started watching this show 2 years ago, the way I would describe this show to people who haven't seen it or have never heard of it, I would always describe the show this way. You know those hour-long dramas that are on TV where there's like so many characters and everybody has their own plot line going on during that hour-long drama? And then you see what happens next week. Okay, take that and mix it with the characters of the Bible. That's The Chosen. Yeah. We see what Simon does for a living. We see how hard it is for him. He has these talks with his wife, Eden. We see what Andrew does, and how, we've never seen that before. Because it was always, all the disciples always looked the same. We've never seen them have conversations with other people, or who they are as a person, or these kind of personality traits. All these characters have personality traits. That's never been done before in this kind of, in media about Jesus. That's never been done before. And I think that's why a lot of people love this show. They're able to connect to it, just like they would if they were watching an hour-long drama with characters in it. That's why we love watching television, because it has characters that we can relate to. Well, take the characters of the Bible and do the same thing with them. And that's this show. And that's never been done before. And it's done in a really, really cool way. And that's what I love about it. So I've gone on long enough. That was the first episode. If you haven't seen this episode, please watch it, even though I just described all the major moments to you, so I'm sorry. Like I said, there's going to be spoilers in these vlogs, so you're better off watching each episode individually and then coming back and seeing what I think of this. Or if you have an opinion of this show, put it in the comments. I hope you guys watch it. And like I said before, you don't have to be a believer to love this show. You're going to love this show either way. Trust me. Trust me. And if you are a believer and you love this show, great, fantastic. And if you're not, I hope you still watch it anyway. It's great. Everybody should see this show. So, so I'll stop talking now, and I will see you guys in the next Chosen vlog. See you later.